Doctor, it is time for us to go ahead and make this official. It has come to my attention that we're going on nearly 18 to 19 years, almost 20 years. And apparently, in order for some very important matters that were set up 15 years ago to be able to be confirmed in a specific kind of understanding of what the expectations were, you would have had to have acknowledged me. You would have had to have provided formal acknowledgement that you and I had a relationship, and that as a result of that relationship, there was production of certain materials, and that those materials were used for and in connection with certain things that were supposed to go either to you or to other people via association with you. And you wouldn't do that, or you didn't do that in a manner that actually qualified, right? So there's kind of like six of one, half a dozen the other. On one hand, were you to have provided that kind of acknowledgement, then I would have had a specific relationship with concepts of capital defense, including capital defense and obligations to work towards some sort of criminal justice reform having to do with either abolition of the death penalty or some sort of relinquishment of certain offenses as being considered capital. And I've actually changed my political perspective. And I do not seek the abolition of the death penalty. And I actually think that there is a greater responsibility we as a society have when it comes to understanding the value of capital punishment and effectively applying it. I think arguments regarding capital punishment and ending capital punishment as somehow being humanitarian or about international human rights is actually completely misrepresentative of what capital punishment is about when it comes to taking responsibility in society for assuring that people understand what crime is and what the consequences are, right? So on one hand, I'm going to thank you because your refusal to acknowledge me and to also claim all of my political capital from the time we were together that needed to be acknowledged has defaulted that political capital to you and to whomever it was with whom you set those obligations up. You didn't acknowledge me. I'm not obligated to them anymore. But on the other hand, we've got this other situation because exactly 3 years ago yesterday, I filed a writ of quo warranto here in the state of Texas, specifically concerning matters related to databases, particularly hierarchical database programs, and how they may impact a variety of matters up to and potentially including capacity to engage in recruitment or to allow for an illicit commingling of assets, including an illicit commingling of assets that can be made available to people who are sanctioned or who otherwise do not qualify for access to those assets. There was a database that was set up here in Texas. And when the name of that database is translated into another language, it bears your family surname. My concern is that you either knew about the fact that people that would have gone through a specific kind of education and would have acquired a certain kind of financial assistance, including through federal appropriations in the state of Texas, would have been entered into that database. And that people in Texas have been conspiring through a variety of machinations to swap out people based upon your credentials and where you are now in order to illicitly commingle and swap assets. And so you and people with whom you're associated are implicated in large-scale money laundering, while people in the United States who refuse to cooperate with organized crime are visited with reprisal, including political reprisal. But because you refuse to acknowledge me, I'm also off the hook for any obligations that come with understanding that you and your efforts to seek education were exploited by people within the state of Texas, regardless of whether or not they engaged you in a good or bad faith contract, right? You didn't acknowledge me. So that has certain advantages to me, but it also has certain disadvantages as well. Because unfortunately, my name was entered in that database as well. And by being entered in that database and without having any sort of professional consideration from anybody at any level this entire time, that means my assets and what I was associated with, independent of you and whoever you worked those deals with, well, that ended up getting illicitly commingled through what they were doing in that database. The good thing is that even though they seized my accounts until today, I met my own personal obligations, and I have the record of that, and I've contended since the onset that it was fraud. Unfortunately, we seem to have a bunch of headless horsemen running around trying to invoke an apocalypse they're not actually prepared for. And we just don't have the capacity to sustain any more emergency response efforts. So I hope that you have compiled your own reserve and that you're going to have it ready when the time comes. I consider this to be the last formal communication I need to have with you or your network. I apologize. A lot of other things could have happened. I was really looking forward to them. I was absolutely 100% sincere. If you had had anything close to as much faith in me as I had in you, this day wouldn't have happened like this. But apparently there was not a meeting of minds, right? And so we are where we are. Good luck on moving forward, and I wish you the best. But as of today, at 10:57 a.m. on June 30th, 2021, my business with you and whoever wants to do business with you is completed. And I will be moving forward on what I need to do.